Good afternoon. I'm Andrea Jennetta, the publisher of Fuel Cycle Week. I'm honored to be participating in AGORACOM's online uranium webinar, and I'd like to thank Cavalix Jim Patterson for the invitation. The title of my presentation is End of the HEU Era, What Investors Need to Know. First, I'll give an overview of the old Megatons to Megawatts agreement. Then, I'll talk about the current commercial transitional supply contract between USEC and TenX. Finally, I'll explore the role Enrichment plays in the uranium market and why it should matter to uranium investors. The Megatons to Megawatts agreement, also known as the HEU agreement or HEU deal, was signed almost 20 years ago by the governments of Russia and the US. It is ending on December 31st. Under its terms, TenX downblends weapons-grade highly enriched uranium, HEU, to low-enriched uranium, LEU. USEC pays TenX for two separate components that together create the LEU. First, USEC pays cash for the enrichment services, or SWU. USEC also pays for the original uranium feed component. The payment is in the form of natural uranium. Back in the day, TenX entered into a sales agreement with 3 Western companies for most of that natural uranium and kept the rest. Those companies are Cameco, NYNCO, which is now a Cameco subsidiary, and Areva. The 3 companies bought the natural uranium, then resold it under contracts to utilities. This material is the famous, or infamous in this case, 24 million pounds that is going away at the end of this year. The HEU deal's end is old news for the uranium market. Because of the long lead times for uranium fuel procurement, all the associated natural uranium was bought, sold, and factored into supply forecasts and production decisions years ago. The material has been absorbed by the market. It's done, and investors need to quit talking about it and move on. If you take anything away from my presentation today, please let it be this. While the HEU deal is over, USEC and TenX still have a commercial relationship. In 2011, they signed a 10-year agreement that is officially called the Transitional Supply Contract. Under the terms, USEC is buying 21 million SWUs contained in LEU and delivering natural uranium feed to TenX. For its part, TenX is enriching the natural uranium feed in Russia at its commercial enrichment facilities. No HEU is involved. Let me repeat that. No HEU is involved. Since HEU has no part whatsoever in the new TenX deal, I don't understand why some in the investment community insist on calling this HEU2. Here in uranium land, we simply call it the commercial deal, the TenX deal, the new agreement. I'm going to be bold and suggest that investors start using these terms too. Why is the TenX deal important? First of all, it ensures that USEC has a future. In this case, it's as a SWU broker, not an enricher. The current thinking is that USEC will end its lease with the U.S. government for the enrichment plant at Paducah at the end of May. That will take it out of the enriching business. It is possible, but not probable, that the American centrifuge plant will be deployed at some point in the future. It's also possible, but even more improbable, that Russian centrifuge technology will be licensed in the U.S. There is a provision in the TenX deal that includes that option. For TenX, the deal is hugely advantageous. It maintains the HEU deal era production levels at TenX's centrifuge plants in Russia. This is a key consideration because centrifuges don't have off switches. They either run or they don't. It also gives TenX access to the uranium feed it needs for its other commercial activities and customers. More on that in a bit. The information in this graphic comes directly from the World Nuclear Association website. The link is provided on the last page of my presentation. There is a lot of detail, some of which is very technical, but I want to direct your attention to the last line of the graphic. Quote, "There is always a trade-off between the cost of enrichment SWU and the cost of uranium." End quote. Now I can hear you saying to yourself, what the hell does that mean? The answer lies in an analogy. When you make coffee at home, you have a lot of flexibility. The type of coffee, the consistency of the grounds, the number of scoops, the water level. When you buy drip coffee at Starbucks, or in this case Tim Hortons, you get what they brew. Whether the shop used more coffee grounds and less water, or less coffee grounds and more water, it doesn't matter. As long as the taste is fine, you don't care. Aspects of enrichment are like coffee. When the price of uranium goes up or supply is tight, utilities can increase the amount of SWU used on a smaller amount of natural uranium to get the LEU they need. This is called underfeeding. Let me repeat that. Underfeeding. In markets like today, with U3O8 plentiful and cheap, utilities don't need to adjust the feed to SWU calculation. But enrichers can. They can deliver to customer specifications and underfeed at the same time. They can then sell the resulting natural uranium and get cash. This material is considered secondary supply, and it isn't only governments that have it. Generally speaking, utilities use the brew-at-home method. Well, okay, it's really a get everything together, then deliver to a company that does the actual coffee brewing, but bear with me on this analogy. The do-it-yourself way means utilities procure and contract for each component of nuclear fuel separately. That's U3O8, conversion into UF6, and enrichment using SWU to get LEU. The resulting LEU is delivered to a fabricator where it is manufactured into fuel assemblies. But utilities can also choose one-stop shopping and contract for enriched uranium product, or EUP. Let me repeat that. Enriched uranium product, EUP. In this approach, utilities buy the end product from a single vendor who is solely responsible for getting the U3O8, converting it, enriching it, and delivering it to the fuel fabricator. EUP is LEU, and LEU is EUP. The only difference is whether you bought it at Starbucks or brewed it at home. 10X is the Starbucks of the enrichment world. 10X is a subsidiary company of Rosatom, the Russian government's nuclear ministry. Rosatom's approach is to supply all the fabricated fuel used by its VVER reactor customers, including uranium and the related components. But there are no readily accessible, easily mined uranium deposits in Russia. That means every commercial decision Russia Nuclear Inc. makes is designed to get as much uranium to its enrichment plants as possible. The uranium is used to fabricate fuel for domestic reactors and VVER reactor customers and to supply EUP to Western utilities. In the U.S. alone, 10X has 14 EUP contracts with utilities. The estimated value of these contracts is $5 billion. These contracts are separate from the Commercial Transitional Supply Agreement with USEC. Besides 10X and USEC, there are two other enrichment companies, NYNCO and Areva. NYNCO has dropped public hints about getting into the EUP game, and my completely unscientific, wildly unsubstantiated hunch is that they are already active in selling natural uranium into the midterm market. Areva has tried but failed to offer integrated fuel services a la EUP. No doubt the company will try again. Then there's Cameco, which has a 20% stake in GE Hitachi's laser enrichment technology. The technology has been licensed in the U.S., but as with uranium, there is a global oversupply of enrichment capacity. Should Hitachi take over the JV, as is rumored, it's possible the plant will be built. Because of the impacts enrichment can have on uranium supplies and the bottom line, you probably now have a much better appreciation for why Cameco is so eager to get it. And I also hope you have a much better understanding of why uranium enrichment, not HEU and not feed, should matter to investors in uranium. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.